Hello guys, my name is Brian and this is my wife Suzanne. We're with Hidden Treasures of the Sierras, a group of Christians that we normally would come in and spend time with you guys, bring you a meal and so forth, but because of COVID we can't do that right now. But we can still send a video that we love you guys and miss you.
So the next thing that you're about to see, the story, is from a man named Bill Liversidge. He was a missionary in Papua New Guinea for 10 years. And he baptized me 15 years ago. He has amazing stories of living with cannibals and people who practice witchcraft. And it was amazing because I was coming out of Satanism and witchcraft when I met Pastor Liversidge. And he's got an amazing story about the power of Christ. And this stuff is real. The Bible is real. It's the living word of God. People have just tried to destroy it for years and years and years and years. They've tried to burn it, outlaw it, and it keeps coming back because it's alive and it's there. It's God's word to you. Spend 5 minutes a day reading it and just see your spiritual life just start to grow, and enjoy this message.
So when you live in a country like New Guinea for 10 years, especially working among the cannibals as I did in my early years, you have to become a fairly adaptable person. If you're not adaptable, you'll have a nervous breakdown. There's plenty of diseases to take you away. There were 12 missionary families in a radius of 200 miles when I started. After 2 years, there's only 2 families left. They've died, they've gone, we used to say troppo, gone over the edge, they've got sick, they've had to go home for one reason or another. It was not an easy place to survive in. Everything about New Guinea was designed to shock you. And if you were not adaptable, you'd go into culture shock very, very quickly. The sights that you saw were just not the normal kind of sights. Or if someone served you a fried rat for lunch, you know. I was the kind of missionary who didn't have to stir the stew pot, I just ate it, you know. I tried to avoid obvious things, but some of the missionaries had to stir the stew pot. If a bat floated to the surface or a rat or something, they'd go hungry and I'd be having a good meal. You know? I didn't realise how adaptable I was till I went to New Guinea. Anyway, I heard this word, Sanguma. And Sanguma has to do with magic. And nobody would explain it to me. I said, what's Sanguma? Oh, well, it's a way of killing one another. I said, yeah, but how does it work? And nobody would tell me. So I'm out on what we call a walkabout in Pidgin English. You know, they use Pidgin English there. New Guinea has 600 actual languages. 60% of the world's languages are all in New Guinea.
Oh my goodness.
Because they have traditionally lived in fear and isolation, each village separate from the other. So Pidgin was developed in order to be able to communicate together. You fella like Harim Liglik talk belang Pidgin, like in Salang Papua New Guinea, number one talk place belang mi palolageta ya. And Papa is stop on top. And Jesus and baby belong hemya. It's a very beautiful language, isn't it? Very beautiful. I took my first meeting in Pidgin after I'd only been there for 2 weeks. And when I didn't know what to say, I just made it up and they seemed to get it.
All right.
So I'm out on walkabout or patrol. I'd go out for 3 or 4 weeks at a time. Some of the highest mountains in the world, the highest in between the Andes and the Himalayas, are in New Guinea. a whole range of mountains over 20,000 feet in height. So you've got snow-capped mountains on the equator. And you're walking up and down these valleys with little villages perched on ridges everywhere. And here I am on patrol, and the leadership in their incredible wisdom asked me to train in a young intern who just arrived from Australia. I said, well, I'm new myself, you know. Nobody's trained me, you know. Well, you've been here for 12 months, you can train him in now. And this guy was totally fearful and intimidated. He only lasted 1 month in New Guinea and had to go home. He had a nervous breakdown. And he was given to me as an intern to train in. So I take him with me and 2 New Guinean missionaries, and the 4 of us set out to go and explore unentered areas where people walk up to you and they feel you.
See if you're good for food.
Because I have a highly developed sense of humour, you know. So they would feel me and I'd say, too tough, you know. We used to joke among ourselves as missionaries in New Guinea. Our big joke was, I've come to New Guinea to get ahead. And on a patrol like this, on a walkabout like this, you're walking through jungles. I mean, you never see the sky. The jungles are so thick, you can't even see the sky. This is thick tropical jungle. Magnificent birds of paradise flying around all over the place with their brilliant colours. Leeches clinging to your legs all over. Swampy water up to your middle. It's a great way to travel, you know. Anyway, and sitting down to dinner every night in the village knowing that you could provide the main course, you know. It's a pretty exciting way to live. Anyway, we're walking through the jungles and I hear the New Guineans, because I can speak their languages, you know. And I hear them using the word Sanguma. I said, listen guys, somebody has to explain to me the meaning of Sanguma. So they sat down and they said, okay, we'll tell you what it is. They said to me, have you ever seen a man having a haircut? I thought, what a strange question. Because there's no stores anywhere. We were 200 miles from the nearest store, you know. I said, well, the men look as though they've had haircuts. But have you ever actually seen a man having a haircut? I said, well, I guess I haven't. Well, you never will. Because it's the hair that they use to work the magic on one another. You kill one of our tribe, we kill one of yours. I've been to some villages where there are no men left. The women are smarter, they don't get into the magic, you know. They said a man goes out into the jungle, cuts his hair, buries it. But somebody from a neighbouring tribe is always spying on him. And after he's gone, they come and dig it up. And they send him a message to let him know, we've got your hair, we'll be working Sanguma, and he prepares to die. Now there's a word in Pidgin, if you don't believe something, you say, oh, Giaman. Basically means I don't believe it, you know. So I started saying Giaman. You can't kill somebody just from a bit of hair. What did I know, you know? And the guy said to me, well, we're going to be coming to a village soon that is practicing Sanguma. So you'll get to see it for yourself. I said, good, I want to see it, because I don't believe it. Well, we could hear the drums beating long before we reached this village. Big village, heathen village. I don't know if you can picture, this is a site that's like prehistoric. These were some of the only Stone Age people left in the whole world. That's why I was so privileged to be there before New Guinea underwent most of its changes. 150 naked men. Their bodies just gleaming with the pig's grease on them, beating little drums with a rat skin on top, up and down in a circle. And I realised that there's a witch doctor in the centre of the circle. Now, I'm a very adventurous kind of person, so I pushed through the circle. My young buddy intern, he's gone off hiding behind a tree. He's terrified. And I push through the circle and I come over to the witch doctor. And he's crouched down by a little smoking fire. And he's got a piece of sweet potato, which we call cow in New Guinea. When you cook it, by the way, in your underground oven with hot rocks, they call that the moo-moo. So when you're hungry in New Guinea, you just moo-moo your cow. And he's got this piece of cow, and stuck into it are tufts of hair all over it. And he has a vine around it, and he's tightening it gradually. And he grins up at me, and talk about the epitome of heathenism. His teeth are black and his lips are bright red. That's the sign of chewing betel nut, which they mix with lime, and it becomes like a hallucinogenic. These guys have been dancing for 48 hours non-stop because they're chewing this drug. Anyway, I could see that this guy was high on it himself, and he grinned at me, and he said, "This Pelaman, close up on me like that." He said, "The man in the next village, this is his hair. And every time I tighten the vine, he's feeling sick." They're very dramatic, the New Guineans. They enact everything. He's lying down. Oh, he's talking to his wife right now, and he's telling her to prepare for his death. He said, "When I break the sweet potato in half, he will die." I said, "Oh, gammon." I was so skeptical, I couldn't believe it. He said, "Okay." So he pulls the sweet potato and breaks in half. 150 men just fell on their backs like dead men. Because I lost it again, because the sight was so dramatic, you know. I have pictures of all this, but I don't usually show it in mixed audiences. I have seen some great sights, believe me. And the witch doctor looks at me and he says, "I said, why don't you walk about? You go looking, master. Why don't you go and check the next village?" I said, "What a great idea. I think I will." So I went to find the young intern. I said, "We're going to walk to the next village. It's only about 20 miles away." You know, we're walking for weeks. 20 miles is nothing. We're going to go up and down the hills. He said, "What for?" I said, "Because we need to know if this magic is actually working or not. Because we're Christian missionaries. We have to offer these people an alternative to this, you know?"
Absolutely. Yes.
So as we drew near the next village, you know what heathen people do when somebody dies, don't you? They wail. They fall on the ground, they cut themselves with knives, they rub dirt all over themselves, and they wail. And I could hear the wailing, and I got this funny feeling. I said, "Oh my goodness, they're wailing." And I realize now that all my skepticism is about to be shot down. Maybe there is somebody who has actually been killed from magic. So as we came to the village, the chief is coming out to meet us. The amazing thing about New Guinea is they've got no mail system, no telephones, but they know all about you before you get there. And how do they know? The trees have talked to them. I sat down under a tree for a whole day once trying to have a conversation. Some people thought I was really branching out, you know. I got no message from the tree. Sometimes the birds sing the messages. They're so close to the natural world, these people, it's scary. We've lost that in our civilization, you know. We're taught to think abstractly, they think concretely. They only know what they can touch and see and feel. It's a beautiful thing to see this. I felt so much less than them because they were more advanced than me in terms of their proximity to the natural world. Anyway, the chief, he knew we were missionaries. He welcomed us into his village. I said, "Oh, look at us, want him something. Long sing out, Papa. What's all this noise?" "Oh, one Pilamana me die finish. A man has just died." "And me darling, want him something." "How did he die?" I could see the fear in his face. "And me die long Sanguma." I said, "Okay." He died from Sanguma. I said, "When did he die?" "When the sun was here." I said to my young buddy, that's about the time we were in the other village. Wow. I'm getting a funny feeling about this, that this actually works. This is actually devilish. It's demonic. I'm a gardener. So everywhere I went in New Guinea, I was looking for new species to take home. You know, nothing ever died in New Guinea. It was so hot and warm. Even your fences grew. I mean, they would sprout, you know. So you'd find an orchid growing on a tree, you just pull it down and take it home and wrap it on one of your own trees. Nothing ever died. I had a magnificent garden in New Guinea. Anyway, I asked the chief's permission to walk around the village so I could check out what was growing there. And that's when I saw the tree. What's the biggest fruit you've ever seen growing?
Breadfruit.
Yeah, some of you have been to the Caribbean probably and you've seen the breadfruit. There'll be this big green knobbly stuff, white inside like bread. Nasty tasting too. Anyway, I'd seen breadfruit, but as I looked at this tree, I'm going, hanging from every branch of this tree in bright orange colours, fruit would have taken two men with their arms out like this. I said, no way. I actually thought I'd made a new discovery, that this is a new variety. My goodness, how will I carry a seed home? I'll have to employ two men to do it, you know. This was huge, hanging from every branch. So I ran over, I was that excited, I ran over and I was about to put my hand, because it had a smooth skin, a bit like a eucalyptus tree. You know, New Guinea used to be actually joined onto Australia, so the flora and fauna are very similar. I thought, my goodness, is it a member of the eucalyptus family or what? I was about to slide my hand down the trunk of the tree when a young man from the village came running over. He took hold of my hand and he pulled it back. No can believe how this fellow DY, master. You mustn't touch the tree. I said, why not? The word for tree is DY. The most popular singing group in New Guinea was DY and his Splinters. I said, what, why shouldn't I touch the tree? Oh, DY belongs Sanguma. It's the Sanguma tree. Oh, I was really confused now. I said, I thought Sanguma was the magic. He said, everyone who's ever touched this tree has died. He's just saved my life. I said, well, thank you for saving my life, you know. He said, come look him, come and have a look. And he took me over and we stood underneath what I thought was huge fruit hanging from each branch of the tree. Dozens of them. And we looked up. Wasn't fruit at all. Smoked bodies wrapped in orange bark. By the way, getting smoked is not a bad way to go if you're planning to die. Huh? It's like being mummified. You can retain all your features. I begged my wife, if I died in New Guinea, she had to promise to have me smoked so I could sit in the living room and grin at her forever and ever. You know? She never had my macabre sense of humour. You know? But I mean, I've seen valleys like with 2,000 people sitting on chairs, all smoked, looking down over the valley. I find it a very attractive option if you're going to die, you know, myself. Anyway, I'm looking up at smoked bodies. And I said to this young man, well, if anyone who touched the tree has died, how did they get up the tree? Being logically minded. Oh, he said, the witch doctor's the only one who has power over this tree. Takes 8 hours to smoke a body, by the way, to do it effectively. Anyway, and that's when I looked at my young Australian friend who's nearly jumping out of his skin at the sight of a smoked body. I said to him, you know, I've just had a great idea. And he looks at me and he says, well, I don't think I want to hear it. I said, what if we put our sleeping bags down at the base of the tree tonight, because, you know, up in the mountains it's going to get chilly tonight. and we put our feet up against the tree. And this young guy looked at me as though I'd lost my marbles. He said, "You're kidding." I said, "You're not really scared of this tree. It has no authority over us.
Right, amen.
You know, we're under the protection of God. This thing can't touch us." He said, "I'll tell you what, I'll put my sleeping bag down next to yours, but you put your feet against the tree." I said, "I don't believe this." So we got inside our sleeping bags, and I lifted up my feet and I put them against the tree. Nobody in hundreds of years of history has ever done this in New Guinea. I mean, it rocked their entire world and belief system. I knew it would. And the moment I touched the tree, the little drums began to beat. They beat out all night long. One of my great regrets in New Guinea was I never learnt to read the drums. I kept trying. We had older missionaries who could hear the drums, but I could never seem to master them. It was always bumpity boom, 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 boom to me. But they were actually sending out messages to that entire, it's a very populous valley. Anyway, we're way down inside our sleeping bags. You can't even see our heads. And I fell asleep with my feet up against the tree.
Praise God.
And early the next morning, I don't know about you, some people will wake up just like that. I kind of come to gradually, and I'm lying there inside the sleeping bag, and it's dark. And I hear this noise, and I'm saying, "What is that noise?" This is a village of maybe, 300 or 400 people, but the noise that I'm listening to is the noise of 2,000 or 3,000 people. The New Guineans are very noisy people. They sing, they dance, they shout, they can't sit still. I'm saying, there's thousands of people out there, what are they doing here? Then it went, boing, oh, the drums. For some reason, the drums have called all these people to come to this little village. Why? And then it struck me, oh my goodness, they actually believe we're dead. That the magic has worked. So I whispered through the sleeping bag to my young buddy, "Are you awake?" And back came the reply, "I haven't been to sleep." I said, "I think they believe we're dead." Oh, he said, "Congratulations." I worked that out hours ago. Well, I said, "Listen carefully, I've just had another great idea." And I could hear him groan. He said, "No." I said, "Listen, they believe we're dead. Why don't we just pretend to be dead?" I've always had a great desire to be present at my own funeral, This could be exciting. So I said to him, "Don't move." He says, "Don't worry, I can't." So the chief, this is such a great moment, the chief orders a young man to come over and find out if we're dead or alive. I'm listening to this. I can't see this young man, but I can picture him. He comes over and he's fearful of the tree. So he leans over like this and he puts his hand where my head is, but I'm inside the sleeping bag. He can't see me. But he makes an assumption and he turns and he shouts back to the chief, "Two fella die finished." They're both dead. And like 3,000 people just erupted in singing and dancing and shouting. You know what I said to myself? The devil has them convinced that their magic is stronger than the power that we represent.
Oh, now.
Oh yes, now. You would have enjoyed this moment. Well, the chief is a little bit cynical. He doesn't know what a sleeping bag is. He calls it a calico in Pidgin. Rasim this fella calico, pull it back. Me fella like looking face belong to fella. We want to see their faces. Now, I don't know about you. I'm one of those persons who has great difficulty in keeping a straight face. under very funny circumstances. I can try, you know. So before the sleeping bag is pulled back, I took a deep breath. I'm lying on my back, so I go. I puffed out my cheeks and my eyes are bulging. And this dirty, filthy hand comes sliding down my face. Well, I don't know about you. I couldn't stand the pressure. So as the hand came sliding down my face, I went, "No!" like this. And that young man, I'm not exaggerating, jumped 2 or 3 feet in the air. And before you could snap your fingers, 2,000 or 3,000 people disappeared into the jungle. They were gone. And behind every tree and every bush, you could see a face looking out like this. And we sat up, and I laughed and laughed, and my buddy laughed for at least 10 seconds. You know? Then he said to me, "Maybe they're angry with us." I said, "I do believe we have the upper hand." He said, "Oh, yeah. Why?" I said, "Well, we've died and we've come back to life again." That's exactly what they were thinking, that we were relatives come back from the dead. We had died during the night, and we had the ability to raise ourselves up. We were gods. I began to understand how Paul must have felt when he was likened to being a god. And we sat there for like 45 minutes, and I kept going like this to the chief. I could see him in the jungle. Finally, because he'd lost a lot of face, he was one of the first to run. He finally pulled himself together and he stood up, and he slowly, and people came behind him, and he slowly walked over and stood in front of me. This is such a great moment. And I want to tell you something. People who are close to the natural world have a natural transition into the spiritual realm. They're actually potentially more spiritual than we are, because we're not educated to be that close to the natural world. And the only things they know are the spirits of good and the spirits of evil, which is really not such a huge bridge into Christianity, is it? Right. The good spirits are the ones who bless your garden, they help your wife to conceive, they keep your enemies at bay. And the bad spirits do all the reverse of that. So they've got a very clear, it's almost like a black and white world in their minds, you know. The difference between good and evil is built into their thinking. They've just never heard about God and his son, Jesus Christ. So the chief is standing before me, and he looks at me very seriously. I say, one-on-one talk, explain to me. You Sutim Putbalong Paladiwa, you touched our tree. Yet you still have life within you. This has never happened before. How is it possible? I thought, oh my goodness, what an opportunity God is giving me. So I pulled out I had the old Sabbath school picture rolls, you know, those old picture rolls with Jesus and his disciples. And I explained to them the only reason that we are still alive is because we are worshippers of Papa, the one true God, and Jesus, his son. Amen. The chief told me later that in that one moment of time that he moved from unbelief into belief. He said, I sensed that I was standing in the presence of a being so powerful, he told me this, that all the gods of New Guinea combined did not equal this one powerful God. Hallelujah. And the beautiful thing about New Guinea is when a chief is converted, everybody, the whole tribe is converted with him. So I left the New Guinea missionaries there. I came back 3 or 4 months later for a visit. I could not believe the contrast. The pigs were gone. They were building houses that you could actually stand up in instead of crawl into. They had little gardens planted everywhere. They built a thatched roof church. We baptized all the adults in that village. Amen. And a young boy came out on Sabbath morning in a white lap and blew the shell, and we all came into worship together. And I said, this is incredible. And in the worship service that Sabbath morning, the son of the chief stood up and shared with us how God had inspired him to carry the good news to the neighbouring village. They'd offered him a hut for the night to sleep in, and during the night while he was asleep, they crept in and cut his hair. He heard the singing and the dancing in the middle of the night. He awakened, and as he listened, he realized they were working it on him. He fell down on his knees and started to talk to Papa. This was the most compelling testimony you've ever heard. And as he talked to Papa, the elders of that village came in to get his body so they could smoke him. And he was on his knees praying. Another village is converted. And in New Guinea, it's not just the theory of God, but it's the power of God that convicts people that God is in you and can be in them. How's your faith today? Wow. So it's a shame we have to, was it really that late? My goodness. Well, we've had a great week together, and I'm just praying that as you go forth from this place, that your daily habit will be to come to the cross and claim all that God has offered you. Secondly, to give Jesus permission to live in you through the Spirit. And as his thoughts come into you, act upon them. As he convicts you through his word, act upon it. And I've got good news. You will have all that God is wanting you to have and to be. And he will be glorified through you wherever you live. Isn't God gracious?